Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Knows.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Some people consider this show controversial, but it's always funny. Freeman Gosden and Charles Correll in an episode of Amos-n-Andy going back to April 29th, 1951. It seems like there were a few people coming by and one stayed behind.
Andy, you know what that music say?
Yes, sir, Amos. That music say, good health to all from Rexall.
The Amos-n-Andy Show with Ernestine Wade, Johnny Lee, Amanda Randolph, Roy Glenn, Jester Hairston, Norma Green, Pinto Colvig, Jeff Alexander's music, and radio's all-time favorites, Amos-n-Andy.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? This is Amos. You know, it's a very satisfying feeling to be associated with a sponsor who stands behind his product with a money-back guarantee. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, every Rexall drug product must give you the satisfaction you want, or you can return it to any Rexall drugstore and get your money back. And it's just one more reason why you can depend on any drug product that bears the name Rexall.
Last week, Sapphire's mother moved in with the Kingfish. However, the Kingfish got an unexpected break. Judge Quigley of the Domestic Relations Court ordered that the mother-in-law stop interfering in their domestic quarrels. The judge ruled, quote, "In all arguments between husband and wife, the mother-in-law shall remain silent at all times." Naturally, the Kingfish is taking full advantage of the situation.
George Stevens, I don't care what the court ordered. You're gonna have to stop picking on Mama.
Now listen, I got that big mouth of hers in dry dock, and that's where it's gonna stay. I tell you, when you finally get a tiger locked up in a cage, you don't go in there and dance the Tennessee waltz with him. That old gal has been making trouble for me for 22 years.
George, I don't see how you could say that. In our whole married life, Mama has never interfered.
Never interfered? She was all set to butt in from the day we was married. She even come to church looking for trouble.
Why, George, at our wedding, Mama was nothing but sweetness and light.
Then how come she was carrying that lead pipe in a prayer book? Now tell me.
Now, George Stevens, wait a minute, here comes Mama.
Good evening, Sapphire. Good evening, George.
Listen, I didn't like the tone of that voice there.
But all I said was good evening.
Yeah, well, I detected a sneer in it. And I think in the future you best just curtsy when you come into the room.
I just come in to find out what you wanted for supper tonight.
Well, I'd like to have some nice lamb chops.
I thought chicken croquettes would be nice.
No, sir. I don't want them camouflage foods. Never know what you was at till the indigestion hit you.
George, we is having chicken croquettes, and that's final.
We is going to have lamb chops.
I said croquettes, and that's final.
We is going to have lamb chops.
I said croquettes.
See here now. Now, there goes your mama again. She's interfering. You see that?
George, Mama just cleared her throat.
Yeah, well, she done cleared it in your favor. I saw her. I'm going in the bedroom and get washed up for supper.
I'm sorry, Mama, about the way George has been acting towards you, but there ain't nothing we can do about it.
Don't be too sure, daughter. I'll tell you about it later. But I think I got a way to take the breeze out of that old windjammer.
Good morning, Andy.
Hi, Hiya, Kingfish, hiya. How you feeling this morning?
Oh, not too well, Andy. Chicken croquettes don't agree with me too good.
Say, how you doing with your mom-in-law? Is you still got a muzzle on the old hound dog?
Yeah, we giving each other the silent treatment now, but it ain't working as well as I think it would. She just don't say nothing. But that old gal can sit still nastier than anyone I done ever.
Yeah, well, tell me this, Kingfish. You don't think you is overdoing this, do you? After all, your mom-in-law is a human being, in the broader sense of the word.
Listen, Andy, that whole family of hers has always been obnoxious. There ain't one of them that's had the decency to show me a least bit of obnoxiousness.
Yeah, I guess you is got a pretty nasty crop of in-laws, Kingfish.
Yeah, running through them in my mind, I think the nastiest of the lot is Sapphire's sister Hortense. She's the one that beat her husband to death with his own wooden leg. You know.
Oh, yeah, I remember her. And take that brother-in-law of yours, Leroy. He ain't exactly no Freddie Bartholomew, neither.
Yeah, Leroy's really something, all right. He's a regular Dracula with horn-rimmed glasses. I never told you this, Andy, but Leroy done dealt me one of the cruelest blows of all. He was responsible for me getting hitched up with Sapphire, you know.
Yeah. Well, that is really hitting below the belt. How's it happen, Kingfish?
Well, it was a pretty sneaky way he done it, Andy. Back in Marietta, Georgia, we was out on one of them summer picnics.
Yeah.
And me and Sapphire got tied together in a three-legged race. And that was the longest time she'd ever gone steady with anyone, you see. Well, when we crossed the finish line, Leroy stuck out his hand, I shook hands with him. The next thing I knew, he was announcing our engagement. That's all I know.
Well, why didn't you back out the thing, Kingfish?
Listen, I done fought the thing all the way. But on the day of the wedding, when the relatives started nailing the church doors shut, I knew I was a-goner then, boy.
Well, you know a funny thing. I has always heard so much about Sapphire's relatives. Don't you have no relations yourself?
Well, and I didn't have a big family to start with. And when Uncle Harry fell in the jute mill up the state pen, why, that stripped the family tree clean as a whistle, you see. Matter of fact, the only relative I know as I has is my cousin Sidney. But I ain't seen him since I was 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah, well, if I was you, I'd go kind of easy on that silent treatment with your mother-in-law. You know, it's like an old fire horse. You can hold them back just so long. One of these days, they're liable to be one of them 5-alarm arguments, and the old lady will go berserk.
Well, don't worry about me, Andy. I got everything under control. I'm sitting on top of that old elephant like Sabu. Oh, boy. Well, let me get in the apartment, yeah. I'm really gonna give my mother-in-law a rough time tonight.
George, is that you?
Yeah, that's me.
George, I got a big surprise for you. Since you've been giving Mama the silent treatment, she's been lonely, and she just felt she had to have somebody to talk to. Look who just arrived this morning from Florida.
Hello, brother-in-law dear.
Holy mackerel, my goofy brother-in-law Leroy. The elephant has done brought its young here.
April 29th, 1951, Amos-n-Andy on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Whatever you think of the racial portion of this show, just think of them as Southerners, and you know what? You'll love the show. April 29th, 1951, Amos-n-Andy on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
Well, it's so nice, all of us sitting down to breakfast together.
Oh, and I is so happy. I got my little baby Leroy here with me, too.
Yes, and I'm here with my dear sister and my dear sweet mama.
Oh, Leroy.
Oh, mama.
Please, folks, I was eating.
I'll get us some more coffee.
Yes, and get me some more of those flapjacks, Sapphire. In the words of John Paul Jones, I have not yet begun to eat.
Ha, ha, ha. And in the words of Benjamin Franklin, drop dead.
Now, no fights while I'm gone.
Leroy, seeing as I ain't allowed to speak to him, would you ask that muttonhead sitting next to you to pass the sugar?
Of course. Would you please pass Mama the sugar, muttonhead?
Hey, Leroy, would you inform that old walrus next to you that she ain't supposed to be talking to me?
And would you inform that nincompoop that I ain't talking to him?
She ain't talking to you, nincompoop.
Now, wait a minute, here.
And furthermore, he ain't having his way around here no more.
And furthermore, you ain't having your way around here no more, fathead.
Now, look, Goofy, don't go jumping the gun on the insults. Wait till the old goat gives them to me before you lays them on me. Mother-in-law, you gonna get in trouble here. The court done ordered you not to speak to me.
I ain't talking to you. I'm talking to Leroy. And from now on, Leroy's going to have plenty to say to you.
Oh, boy, I'm going to enjoy this visit more than usual. Go ahead, Mama. You ain't even got warmed up yet.
Now, listen, I've had enough of this. I was getting out of here. I'll fix you, too.
Oh, look, Mama. He fell over my foot and hit his head against the radiator. I do believe he's unconscious.
Well, let him lay there till Sapphire gets back from the kitchen. Maybe she want to go through his pockets. Pass the maple syrup, son.
I tell you, Sapphire, there's gotta go. I just can't stand it.
I wouldn't say that if they was your relatives.
Now, listen, you only saying that cause you knows the only relative I has is Cousin Sidney.
Now, George, you'll just have to put up with them because they is stink.
Honey, I say they gotta go. They is eating us out of house and home. Why, this morning your brother tried to eat the light bulb out of the icebox. Thought it was a boiled potato. Calhoun, you is my lawyer. Now, how in the world can I get rid of my mother-in-law and her goofy son, Leroy?
Well, don't despair, Kingfish. They're stamped out yellow fever, so we ought to be able to do something about them, too.
Well, it'll take something stronger than that mercurochronium to put a dent in them two viruses.
Wait a minute. Maybe there's some way you could scare your mother-in-law into getting out of there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Anything that would scare that monster would be too horrible to mess with, you see.
Yeah, but that's the only way I think you're going to affect a successful relative removal.
Yeah, well, now, it's worth a trial, all right. Now, look here. I got to get them leeches off my back somehow. Yeah, wait a minute. I'll get Andy to help me.
Yeah.
I'll invite him up for supper, and then while Sapphire's doing the dishes, me and Andy will get a hold of a mama-in-law. Well, Andy, Sapphire and Leroy doing the dishes. Let's you, me, and Mama squat down in the living room here.
Thank you, Kingfish. And, Mrs. Smith, may I say that it was charming to come up here and renew our pleasant acquaintanceship of the past?
Ah, shut up.
That's my mother-in-law for you. Always ready with a witty retort. By the way, Miss Brown, I ain't seen the newspapers today. Is there anything new in the world today?
Oh, nothing much, Mrs. Stevens. Man over on 138th Street got his nose caught in a gum machine. A couple more senators popped each other on the beezer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, by the way, that fiendish mother-in-law killer is on the loose again.
You don't mean to tell me?
Oh, yeah.
You ain't by any chance referring to the man who was knocked off 18 mother-in-laws in the last month? The notorious Harpoon Harry?
That's the one. It seemed from the best reliable information this Harpoon Harry used to work on a whaling ship.
Mm-hmm.
He come home from a voyage once, and his mother-in-law made trouble for him.
No.
He let her have it with the instrument of his trade, and he been on the go ever since.
Wait a minute. You mean to say this man has been going around killing mother-in-laws?
I beg your pardon, Mama. I didn't know you was eavesdropping on our conversation here.
Well, what is this about a mother-in-law killer?
Oh, that. Oh, well, I didn't realize that you had overheard my conversation with my friends here. Well, it seems that this fiend he is referring to is something like Jack the Ripper, only he has developed a natural hatred for mother-in-laws.
And you say he's an ex-whaler?
Yeah, when you think of it, it wasn't too big a jump from gaffing whales to harpooning mother-in-laws, you see.
Oh, yeah, he been shish-kebabbing them old ladies right and left.
Well, George, Not that I'm frightened or anything, but does the newspaper say anything about where this fiend is operating?
Well, the last report, he was pig-sticking his way up 134th Street.
George, we is on 135th Street. You don't think he's gonna come around here, do you?
Well, now, that's hard to say. And, Mama dear, I wouldn't want to alarm you or nothing, but if you were sleeping in our guest room some night and wakes up and there's a man standing over you in a pea jacket hollering, "There she blows," if I was you, I'd get my blub out of there in a hurry.
Oh, dear. Oh, my goodness. Leroy, come in here.
Yes, Mother dear?
Leroy, pack our bags. We're leaving right now.
But, Mama, what's the matter? I thought you was going to stay for another month.
No, sir. We're going back to Brooklyn. The only monster we got to worry about over there is Leo DeRocha.
You know, Kingfish, your apartment here is really peaceful and quiet these days, I'll say that.
Yes, and since I got Leroy and his mom-in-law out, this place is like Madison Square Garden the day after the circus leaves. Yeah, Sapphire's out shopping, too.
Hey, look out the window, Kingfish. Ain't it a beautiful day?
Yeah. Spring is really here, eh? Look at that, beautiful.
Yeah, wait a minute. Look down in the street there. That couple getting out of that cab. The ones with the 4 suitcases in the parrot cage.
Yeah, and look at the sport coat. Look at the sport coat on that fella. The way he's got his hat turned up there. He looked like a fella that once sold me a green tuxedo.
Yeah, and that gal with him is really something, too, with them bobby socks. And that's the first plaid fur coat I seen in a long time. And look at that. That show is a big parrot they got in the cage. Hey, look, they're coming up to your apartment steps here.
Yeah, probably dropping in on someone else in the building here. I sure hate to be the sucker that trio descends on.
Yeah. Well, it takes all kinds of people to make a world. Hey, Kingfish, that's your doorbell. You don't think that them people could be...
Don't be silly, Andy. They just probably want to ask directions or something. Yes, what is it?
Hiya, sonny boy. Could you tell me where I could find a George Stevens?
Well, I is George Stevens.
Bring in the bag, Shannon. This here's the place.
I'm right with you, Sidney.
Hey, wait a minute, Jeff. What is this? Get them bags out of here.
Don't you recognize me, Georgie? I'm your little cousin, Sidney. Me and the little woman done come to visit with you, ain't we, Luella?
Well, it ain't the Waldorf Astoria, but it'll do.
Ain't she a killer, Georgie? Oh, my back. You know, I knowed you wouldn't mind if we dropped in on you for a couple of months. I says, Lou, we can always count on good old cousin Georgie.
Oh, my back. Don't hit me like that.
What do you think of Georgie, Luella?
I like him fine, but you didn't tell me the poor old man had been in an accident.
Well, now, wait a minute, Shell. You can't move in on me like
this. Now, George, I want you to meet the baby of the family right here in the cage. Say hello to cousin George, Herman. How do you do? How do you do? And incidentally, Georgie, I'm starved.
You said a mouthful.
Polly wants water. Polly wants water. Well, Cousin Sapphire, this looks like a wonderful supper. Wonderful supper, don't it, Luella?
You said a mouthful, Sidney. Thank you. I brought our steaks in on the platter. Would you help yourselves and pass them along?
Thank you, Cousin Sapphire. Here, let me help you to a steak. Now, Luella, you better take 2. They're small. These 3 will do me nicely. Now I'll pass the platter to you, Cousin George.
Would someone please pass me a piece of bread so I can sop up some of this gravy here?
Well, that sounds like some supper you had last night, Kingfish.
Oh, I tell you, Andy, I never seen nothing like it in my whole life.
Nah.
You know, my cousin Sidney and his wife done set a new low in obnoxiousness.
Yes, huh?
Oh, yeah. You ain't got no idea of the day I put in with them yesterday.
It was pretty bad, huh?
Bad? I'm going to tell you, son, this is one of the nastiest hunks of infiltrating I done ever seen in my life. I'm going to tell you something. When I got home last night, he was making a frontal attack on the icebox. She had established a beachhead in the bathroom, and when I went to take refuge in my easy chair, I was attacked from the rear by a man-eating parrot. Now, that's what I was.
Well, that is something, all right, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but the crowning blow come in the middle of the night.
And you'll hear about that crowning blow following these messages from your favorite radio station. April 29th, 1951, Amos-n-Andy. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with me, Wyatt Cox. For a very long time, you've heard me talk about My Pillow, and of course the My Pillow products are fascinating. My slippers, which are on special right now, all of the sheets and the pillows and the pillowcases, and all the wonderful things. But did you know that American entrepreneurs have gotten together with Mike Liddell to form My Store, a whole line of products made by American entrepreneurs, including health products, garden and patio, food and drink. If you're a coffee drinker, check out some of the coffees they have there. Beauty, bath products, personal care, things for your pets. Check out mystore.com. That is mystore.com. And of course, when you use my promo code, which is Wyatt, that's W-Y-A-T-T, you can save yourself a good bit of money on anything there. Check out mystore.com, promo code Wyatt. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station. Now the conclusion of Amos-n-Andy, April 29th, 1951. What did he find in the bathroom?
Andy, is you ever gotten up at 4 a.m., gone into the bathroom for some aspirin, and got slapped in the face by a wet camisole?
Holy smoke, Kingfish. This sounds like the worst invasion since that Mongolian general took over Europe, Genghis Khan.
Listen, Andy, they gotta go. I'm going over now to see my lawyer. I'm going to tell him to consider everything from a court order to mustard gas. Oh, he got to get out. Now listen, Calhoun, you got to do something for me. You just got to.
Now take it easy, Kingfish. Take it easy. Just tell me what the problem is, then we'll get the solution. Because I has found that when you get the solution first, you have an awful hard time getting a problem to fit it.
You got something there, but listen to the problem, and here it is. Now, the thing is to get the relatives out of the house.
Wait a minute. I thought you already done got them out.
No, these ain't the same relatives. This is a new batch that done showed up.
Another batch?
Yeah, they moved in on it.
You know, Kingfish, when it comes to relatives, I think you got a bad leak somewhere.
No, Calhoun, you see, these relatives is 4 times worse than the other ones ever was.
Kingfish, I beg to differ with you. I see your mama-in-law and that Leroy, and I contend that there ain't nobody on the face of the earth that could be worse than they is.
Yeah, but Calhoun...
I hold to my contention that there couldn't be no one more obnoxious and more despicable than them 2 vultures.
Calhoun, these new ones, though, is my relatives.
I concede the point. Kingfish, the only thing you got is a choice between the 2 evils.
What you mean, Calhoun?
Well, now, to get your relatives out, you has got to talk Leroy and his mama into coming back.
Yeah, well, I guess you're right, Calhoun. They is pretty bad, but at least Leroy ain't never nipped me on the bald spot with his beak. I'm gonna get a hold of Leroy and see if I can't get him and his mama to move back with us.
You know, Kingfish, this mess you is in reminds me of one of the most famous events in history. That sad day when Julius Caesar was walking along the streets of ancient Rome. Suddenly, without warning, a figure snuck up behind him and plunged a knife right between his shoulder blades, piercing him to the heart. It was then, as he lay dying, that he uttered them famous words, "Et tu, Brute."
What does that mean, Calhoun?
I didn't know my mother-in-law was in town.
sent you over to the lodge hall here to have a heart-to-heart talk with you.
Well, what can I do for you, brother-in-law, dear?
Leroy, I has reconsidered my harsh actions, and I want you and your sweet mother to move back in with me and Sapphire, you know.
Move back in? Well, I don't know about that. I had the impression that we wasn't exactly welcome there.
Why, Leroy, whatever give you that idea?
Oh, I don't know, Kingfish. I guess it was the little things. The way you hid my upper plate at mealtime. And the broken glass you put in my bed every night.
Oh, come now, Leroy. I think you was just being super sensitive. That was just a little boyish pranks there. You couldn't... you coming back, though, ain't you, Leroy?
No, I ain't.
Now, listen, Leroy. If you and your mama will come back, I'll give you $100 in cash money.
Yeah? Well, now that you put it on a sentimental basis... Well, then I would be delighted to move in with you, brother-in-law, dear.
Oh, yeah. Well, Andy, so the Kingfish finally got his cousin Sidney and his wife out of the apartment, huh?
Yeah, Amos, while Sidney and his wife was tending services this morning, Kingfish threw their suitcases out in the street and snuck Leroy and the old lady back in.
Yeah, well, I guess when Cousin Sidney got back, he didn't want to tangle with Sapphire's mama, huh?
Oh, no. According to the Kingfish, Sidney got a look at the old lady through the peephole in the front door and give up without a struggle. He cleared out of there lock, stock, and parrot.
Yeah, well, that was something, all right. The Kingfish's cousin Sidney and his wife showing up after the Kingfish and Sidney hadn't seen each other since they was kids.
Yeah, well, relatives is tricky things, all right. They is just like radishes. When you think you was here to last of them, there they is giving you trouble.
Well, Mama, we's all set back here with George and Sapphire again.
That's the way I figured, Leroy. If I don't miss my gas, we're good here at least till Christmas.
Yes, Mama, it's like old times the way you has George under your thumb again. I don't think he'll get out of line for a long time.
I say he won't.
And you know, I gotta hand it to you, Mama.
Yes.
That was a great scheme of yours to get us back here.
It sure worked fine, didn't it? But we must never let George know that we got those two friends of ours from Brooklyn to pose as his long-lost cousin Sidney.
Freeman Gosden and Charles Correll, Amos-n-Andy, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks to Ted over at RadioMemories.com for another episode of Lum and Abner here. And we're back to the situation where there are some property issues right around the Jot 'em Down store. This episode originally broadcast on April 29th, 1953.
Granny's, Abner. I believe that's our ring.
I dog is Lum. I believe you're right.
I'll see. Hello, Jot 'em Down store. This is Lum and Abner. But now let's see what's going on down in Pine Ridge.
Howdy, friends. This is Dick Huddleston. Well, the new Pine Ridge Library, operated by our two old friends, is open for business. And the first one to take out a card was, of all people, Cedric Weehunt. Cedric may not be an avid reader, but he's about the best listener in town. And he's kept Abner busy reading to him from the books about our little four-footed friends that kids love so well. If we listen, I think we can get in on the tail end of the story that Abner's reading to Cedric right now. And so Snorter limped home a sadder but wiser piggy, and he never disobeyed his mama again. There.
Old Snorter, boy. Read it to me again, Mr. Abner. Read it again.
No, now, Cedric, let's read a different story this time. I'm getting tired of that one. Let's see here. Yeah, here's one that ought to be a good one.
And Snorter limped home a sadder but wiser piggy. It sure learned old Snorter a lesson, boy.
Yeah. Now listen to this one now, Cedric. Once upon a long time ago, there was a little pink-eyed cottontail rabbit named Pinky Winky. One day...
Is Snorter in this story, Mr. Abner?
No, Cedric, this is about the rabbit.
Old Snorter sure learned his lesson, didn't he?
Yeah. One day, little Pinky Winky was sitting by the edge of a pool of clear water. He looked down into the water and saw a little gold-colored fish swim by.
Oh, I wish Snorter was in this story.
Now, you've got to be quiet, Cedric, or I ain't going to read it to you.
Took a liking to Snorter.
Yeah. Pinky Winky's eyes grew very large as he looked at the little gold-colored fish swim by. And suddenly he cried, "That's what I want to be, a gold-colored fish and swim underwater," he added. Then he said...
For goodness sakes, Abner, what's going on here?
Huh?
What are you doing?
Oh, Doggers, I never heard you come in, Lum.
I told you to straighten up them books, not read them. Grannies, do I have to stay here every minute of the day to see that you do what I tell you?
Well, Lum, it takes a lot of time to straighten up the books.
It does the way you're doing it. You ought to be ashamed of yourself anyway, a fellow your age reading books like that.
This weren't for me. I was reading them to Cedric. Don't you want Cedric to get educated?
Well, them kind of books ain't for Cedric, either.
What's wrong with them?
Well, I can understand them all right, Mr. Lum. In that other story about old Snorter, he's a pig, and what did he do, Mr. Abner?
Well, don't you recollect, Cedric? He's seen a big field
I
of
don't
green...
care what he's seen. I don't want to hear none of this prattle-prattle. Now, put them young'uns' books back in the shelves and get them books straightened up. Grannies, I'm going to see that you run this library right. You better run along, Cedric.
But, Lum, Cedric's got just as much right in the library here as anybody.
Yeah, I got a card to it. You give it to me yourself, Mr. Lum.
It's a public library, Lum, and don't forget, Cedric's just as public as anybody.
Well, he just can't sit here wasting your time like that, though, Abner. If he wants to take a book out, let him take one out and read it himself. Well, I don't read good like Mr. Abner does, though, Mr. Lum. Boy, when he's reading about Snorter, I can just close my eyes and seems like a pig sitting there doing the talking.
Well, thank you, Cedric.
Well, come on, Mr. Abner. Read me what happens next to Pinky Winky.
All right.
You don't. Abner ain't reading nothing to you, Cedric. He's got work to do. So you better run on home. Yes, Mom. I don't believe I'll go home, though. I believe I'll just go out and walk around on my property for a while. Your property?
Why, sure. Recollect, we sold Cedric a little piece of that strip by the store out there.
Yeah, you said I had to be a property owner before I could get a library card. Oh, yeah, that's right, ain't it? Well, I don't care where you go, Cedric, but get started. Abner's got a lot of work to do. Yes, Mom. All right, Abner, get busy there. I'm going to clean up the feed room, and I want you to have them books straightened up by the time I'm through.
All right, I'll have it done.
And see that you do.
Yep.
Then everything in this store's in a worse mess than I've ever seen it before.
All right. It's practical dead.
Well, I reckon I better be going, Mr. Abner. You ain't going to read to me no more. If there's any telephone calls, I'll be right outside on my property there.
All right. No, wait a minute, Cedric. Don't go. While Lum's out and back there, I'll finish this story. I'll read quiet.
Oh, good. Let's see if you can get Snorter into the story some way.
Not so loud, Cedric. All right, now, where was we at?
Pinky Winky had just seen a gold-colored fish, and he wanted to be one, too, and swim underwater.
Oh, yeah. Here we are. Then Pinky Winky tried waving his tail back and forth like the little gold-colored fish was doing. But, alas, his tail was so short it wouldn't wave.
When did you get a flag? Flags wave good.
Get quiet, Cedric. This made Pinky Winky so mad he jumped right into the pool and cried, "I will swim underwater without a tail." But poor Pinky Winky could not swim underwater. Half drowned, he climbed out on the bank, coughing and choking.
Well, I bet Snorter could have done it. Pigs can swim underwater, I think.
Yes, be quiet now.
Now, Pinky Winky was more determined than ever that he was going to be a little gold-colored fish and swim underwater. So Pinky Winky turned away from the pool and shouted to old Mr. Owl, who was quietly perched on a nearby limb.
Oh, this is getting exciting.
Oh, yeah. Ha, ha, Mr. Owl. All you can do is sit on a limb and blink your eyes. But I am going to be a gold-colored fish and swim underwater.
He wants to swim underwater, don't he?
Mr. Owl just blinked twice and said, "Hoo, hoo, you can't do it. You can't do it. Hoo, hoo."
Sounds right smart like an owl.
"Yes, I can. I will find a way," shouted Pinky Winky in an angry voice, and off he ran.
Read that part about the owl again, that hoo-hoo business.
Yeah, not so loud, Cedric. Now, it so happened that Mr. Freddy Fox overheard Pinky Winky make his boast about becoming a fish. And this was very bad because Mr. Freddy Fox liked to eat little white rabbits.
Uh-oh. I bet old Pinky Winky would like to swim underwater, wouldn't he? Boy.
Yeah, well, don't talk so much now, Cedric. Let me finish. So Mr. Freddy Fox, who was a very crafty fox, quickly thought up a plan to capture the little rabbit. He turned and ran straight to his friend Bushytail, the sign painter, and he said to him, "Bushytail, I want you to paint me a sign that says, Mr. Freddy Fox Swimming Instructor. Special free lessons in underwater swimming."
Well, that's just what old Pinky wants to do.
Well, of course, that's the idea. See, Freddy Fox is just doing that so he can catch Pinky Winky.
Is Freddy Fox going to eat up old Pinky?
I don't know yet. We've got to read the story and see, Cedric.
Gee, I hope he don't eat him. I like Pinky Winky. I wish Snorter'd come along and help him.
Yeah, well, keep quiet and we'll find out what happened. So, Mr. Freddy Fox took his sign and put it up near a pretty little stream. Then he hid in the bushes and waited for Pinky Winky to come along. And sure enough, pretty soon Pinky Winky came slowly up to the stream, still wondering how he could become a little gold-colored fish.
You know what he wants to be a fish for? So he can swim underwater.
I know that, Cedric. Now, hush up.
Catching on to this story.
Yeah, well, be quiet. Pinky Winky cried for joy when he spied the sign which the crafty fox had put up. "Now my wish will be granted," the rabbit said gleefully. Then he called out in a loud voice, "Oh, Mr. Freddy Fox, where are you, Mr. Fox? I wish to take swimming lessons."
No, don't do that, Pinky. He'll eat you.
So then Mr. Freddy Fox laughed to himself. Ha, ha, ha. Then he gave a great spring and leaped out of the bush.
No, get away, Pinky, get away.
Well, wait, let me read this. And leaped out of the bush straight at Pinky Winky. And about
What did I tell you about reading them stories? Don't try to deny it. I could hear every word you was reading clean out there in the feed room. Give me that book.
No, wait a minute now, Lum. We're just about through here. Freddy Fox is just about to jump on the...
give me that book. Here. Now, go on, straighten out them books.
Won't you even let us see how it comes out?
No, sir. I'm taking this book with me so as you can get some work done. Swan to goodness. Two grown men sitting here entertaining themselves reading children's bedtime stories. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves, both of you.
Well, I think they're interesting.
Well, if you're going to read, you ought to read something that'll help you instead of wasting your time on something like this. How you can get interested in them children's stories is more than I can see. Now go on, get your work done.
Dad blame that Lum. If he hadn't taken that book with him, we could have read in a whisper and found out how it come out, Cedric.
Yes, Mom. Poor little Pinky Winky. Had to leave him and that old fox jumping right on him.
Yeah, I wished I was there to help him.
Oh, he'll get out of it some way or other.
Well, how could he? A little rabbit.
He's a hero. Heroes always win.
Well, Cedric, he's just a little rabbit. He can't whip a great big fox. You know that.
Maybe old Snorter will come along and help him.
Snorter?
Yes, Mom. I bet that's what happened. Snorter saved him. He licked the fox and saved little Pinky.
Why, he couldn't have did that, Cedric. Snorter weren't even in the story.
Well, maybe he stopped by there on his way home.
Stop by where?
Well, you was reading there where Snorter limped home a sadder but wiser pig. He might have stopped by that swimming hole on his way home.
No, Cedric, that was the end of that story. See, Snorter couldn't have helped him. Just feared the fox got little Pinky. That's what happened.
Still believe Snorter saved him.
No, he never. The fox ate him just as sure as the world, Cedric.
No, he never. Snorter saved him.
Why, he never neither. Pinky Winky's a goner. That's all there is.
You're both wrong. When Freddie Fox jumped at Pinky Winky, he hit his head on the sign and fell in the creek and drowned.
He did? Well, good for him.
And Pinky Winky went hippity-hop, here. Put this book back in the shelf and keep it there. Very odd is you and Cedric, two grown men, wasting your time reading children's bedtime stories.
It gets contagious, doesn't it? From April 29th, 1953, Lum and Abner here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Ted has a lot of these fully restored shows of Lum and Abner, better than anything else you'll find out there on cassette or CD or flash drive for your computer. Visit Ted at radiomemories.com. That is radiomemories.com. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream, classicradio.stream. Stream our shows on demand. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact us there, find our social media links, find a list of podcast sites that have our shows available, and also you can also buy me a copy to help us acquire additional classic radio collections and to keep our distribution channels up and running. We appreciate everybody who has done the Buy Me a Copy at classicradio.stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tell all your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, right here on your favorite radio station.